The Gun. I'm David Tuchman, here each and every Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We are sponsored by CrushLivePoker.com, the first and only site out there specifically for live poker players. You can get 1 month free at CrushLivePoker.com using the code DTA401. That is good for the end till the end of this month. That'll get you 1 month free over at CrushLivePoker.com. We've got hundreds of podcasts, hundreds of videos. Whether you play 1-2 or you play high stakes, it doesn't make a difference. If you want to play live poker, you got to check out CrushLivePoker.com. I'm David Tuchman. You can get a hold of me at Tuch on Sports. You can send me an email, davidt@CrushLivePoker.com, or you can get a hold of me over at the forums at Crush Live Poker. If you are a subscriber to CrushLivePoker.com and you don't use the forums, I think you are doing yourself a disservice. So check those out for sure. Got a cool show in store for you today. The World Series of Poker schedule is out. Ching ching. What are you guys doing this summer? I am not confirmed, by the way. I have no idea if I am commentating this summer or not. I don't think the World Series knows what they are doing. They are still having some internal conversations. They're still having some conversations with ESPN. And once I know, you will know. I promise that. And I've been told that from my bosses as well. Once they know, they will let me know. Hopefully I will be there. So we'll go through the schedule a little bit. We're going to have some mental game with Dr. Trisha Cardner. I am going to play a heads-up battle with Stacey Sullivan. She's been on the show a couple of times. She's also been on Poker Night in America. She played down in Florida. And I'm going to play a heads-up match versus her we're going to do a 100 big blind freeze-out for $100. The winner will get $100. Going forward, by the way, I'm going to be having free rolls and all sorts of stuff. So I tweeted out how to join my poker club, my home game thing over at PokerStars. I tweeted out the how to get to that. So you can check that out at Tuch on Sports. And going forward, I'm going to have free rolls. In fact, I'm going to announce one right now. Next Wednesday, no, sorry, not next Wednesday, because I'm not here next Wednesday. The following Wednesday after that, February 8th, okay, which will be our next live show, I am going to have a $20 free roll, okay? All you have to do to be eligible for this free roll is go to iTunes and write me a review for Under the Gun over at iTunes. Very simple to do it. If you don't know how to do it, Google is your friend. Very easy. Head over to iTunes, write a review for Under the Gun podcast, and of the people that write the reviews, I will put them in a hat, I will pick out a winner, and the winner will play me for $20. If you beat me, you get $20. If you lose to me, nothing. It is a 100 big blind freeze out. Just make sure that you are available at approximately 9-10 p.m. Eastern Time on February 8th. If not, we can always find somebody else and we can put you in another time. So we're going to do that. I always say I'm going to talk about Trump, but what is there really to say? I mean, you're the fucking president of the United States. Grow up. You know what I mean? I actually put a tweet out there a few days ago. I put a tweet out there yesterday, I should say. Last night. And essentially, this is what I said, okay? I just want you to make sure you guys are aware of where I'm at. Because remember when he won, I was obviously very anti-Trump before the election. When he won, we had a podcast the next day. And I came out and said, well, the people have spoken. He is our president. Be with it. That's what's going on, okay? But I put a tweet out there last night because from what we have seen the last couple of months and what we have seen the last few days just since the inauguration have been concerning, to say the least. And I put this out there. I said, okay, for those of you who told me to give him a chance, has it been long enough yet? You're the president of the United States. You cannot come out and say 3 to 5 million people voted illegally, fraudulently, however you want to say it, without any evidence or any proof. It's irresponsible. It is alarming and manipulative, to say the least. And I could go on, but I don't want to spend the entire podcast talking about Donald Trump. but even if you voted for him at this point, you have to be somewhat concerned. I mean, all that drain the swamp bullshit. Meanwhile, of his appointees, 80% of them have basically been career politicians? Just absolutely atrocious. Anyway, like I said, we're going to get... so Stacey Sullivan I'm playing heads up with. We're getting Dr. Cardner on the line in just a moment. I want to talk a drop of football because, with the Super Bowl coming up, I thought it was interesting. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the topic of a lot of conversations in the offseason once the Super Bowl is over. Will the Patriots trade him? What will they trade him for? Will they hold on to him? How old is Tom Brady? Tom Brady, by the way, is 39. He'll be 40 next season. All these different things. And I put a tweet out there a few days ago. Jamie Collins was traded in the middle of the season by the New England Patriots to the Cleveland Browns for a third-round pick. The Cleveland Browns have subsequently re-signed him to a 4-year deal, making him what I believe is one of the highest paid. He'd be technically the highest paid inside linebacker in the league. He wouldn't be the highest outside linebacker, but he's certainly one of the higher paid linebackers in the league. Question is, will he perform to that level? And my point was, and I simply said, how often does a player leave the New England Patriots? And this coming from somebody who hates the Patriots. With every core of my being, I hate them. But how many players have left the Patriots and actually have gone on to have really good careers? I mean, Chandler Jones had a pretty good year this season, but he was also traded for a second-round pick before the draft, a much heftier price. And I say this about Jamie Collins because I say, with Jamie Collins in that particular instance, and I got into kind of a Twitter debate with somebody, very civil, where, I basically pointed out, I go, this is a guy, had they just kept him for the season and let him go in the offseason, the compensation, the free agent compensation they would have got probably would have been a third-round pick. So for the Patriots to get rid of him, it has to kind of raise your eyebrow a little bit. There's got to be a red flag. Why are they getting rid of a perfectly productive player in a season when they're contending for a Super Bowl? And it brings me to the Jimmy Garoppolo thing because that is going to be, like I said, a big topic of conversation in the offseason. Now, if Tom Brady were 33 years old or 35 years old even, we'd be having a different conversation. But the fact of the matter is he's 40. And even though Tom Brady has come out and said he feels great and he wants to play 10 more years, I think he said this 2 years ago or whatever it was, or 4 years ago. And even though people say, hey, he can compete till he's 45, he very well might. But in the history of the NFL, nobody has beaten Father Time. And while Tom Brady is, in my opinion, one of the top 3 quarterbacks of all time, he could very well be the best, but I don't want to get into that. But he's definitely top 3, at least in my opinion. Maybe number 1. But he's going to be 40 years old. And my thought would be that at some point, this guy is going to slow down a little bit. I think that goes without saying. And frankly, if the New England Patriots thought they had, if any team had a 40-year-old quarterback, even if he's a Hall of Famer, if they had a future franchise quarterback on the bench, they would never trade him, right? Theoretically, if you had Joe Montana, you're not trading Steve Young, okay? When the Green Bay Packers had Brett Favre, they're not trading Aaron Rodgers. So in this particular case, it's very apropos because, you're talking about Tom Brady, who's certainly, in the twilight of his career, whether he has another year, maybe 2 years, whatever it may be. If Jimmy Garoppolo is the next great quarterback in the NFL, they're not trading him, period. So I think, in my opinion, because if people are talking about what would the Cleveland Browns trade for him. Now, there's a sucker born every day. And I believe that if New England Patriots don't believe Jimmy Garoppolo is the answer at quarterback, they don't believe that he's the franchise quarterback, they will trade him and they will get a king's ransom for him. But my point will be, and this is simple, if the Patriots are actually willing to trade him, do you want him? Because I wouldn't. Even being the New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns or any team, if the Patriots starting quarterback is 40 and they are willing to trade their quote-unquote stud quarterback, young guy, for a 1 and a 2 or whatever it might be, you should really look under the hood and make sure you know what you're getting. Because I don't believe the Patriots would trade him if they think he's a franchise guy. Anyway, let's start. I'm going to start this heads up match. I'm not going to reference it too much. Last week I did it for the first time and I played with Bart. And it didn't really work because I was kind of talking about the hands. And obviously the vast majority of you you listen to this podcast after the fact, so you don't get to see it. Really cool, though, we are now publishing these on our own YouTube channel. So go over to YouTube, subscribe to Crush Live Poker, and you can watch these. And if there's any heads-up match that you want to watch, you can either A, watch it in the YouTube channel, or you can watch it live and you can join us on Wednesday nights. Stacey Sullivan is currently sitting out, but when she joins the fray, I will join that. In the meantime, I am going to get Dr. Cardner on the line. I am enjoying. I picked up some beer this week. I'm just enjoying a little Stone, Citra Sweet. It's a good beer, nice and light. I've had it a million times. You guys know that. I got to tell you, the beer has not been funneling in. There was a point where a lot of you guys out there were sending me beer. I have not received beer in many, many months. I'm gonna have to do my own shopping. And with a pregnant wife, I'm just not getting any. Strong Odor, what's up, my man? Joe Flat. Joe Flat says, Yo, Tuch, I think it's important that everybody's forgetting that Jimmy G is an unrestricted free agent after next year. Yes, after next year, but he's a restricted free agent next year. And keep in mind, after next year, Tom Brady is then 41 years old. Okay? Just put it out there. Rick and Barstow, what's up, my man? How are you guys? All good stuff. Stacy, by the way, is a diehard Patriots fan. So with that, let's get our own Dr. Cardner on the line. We're going to talk some... We're going to talk with Dr. Cardner about some really good mental game stuff, guys, which I'm always a fan of. So my little intro there with Trump and then, of course, football. Now let's get to poker, okay? I've got a couple of hands, by the way, that I will be going over later. Obviously, I will continue to play Stacy once she signs on. And besides that, we're good to go. Stacy and I, by the way, are playing for $100, even though we're going to play a 100 big blind shootout. So the blinds are 100, 200. We're each going to buy in for $20,000. So that should be fun. Anyway, with that, we have the one and only Dr. Trisha Cardner on the line. How are you?
Hey, hey, hey.
How are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. Hey, before we get to poker and mental game stuff, I wanted to talk to you about a dog's purpose. You and I are both both dog lovers, and we both actually have golden retrievers. We both have two of them, actually. And
yes, we do.
You know, it's interesting. When I saw the footage, if any of you haven't seen that, there was footage out there from TMZ that came out just recently. There was a German Shepherd that was regrettably forced to do a stunt and was clearly nervous and scared about it and didn't want to do it, and they forced him to do it. Then they showed a connecting video that was apparently edited together where the dog went under the water for a few seconds before somebody yelled cut. And there was like a ton of outrage over about a 72-hour period, including me. Then strangely enough, I was on Twitter, and there was a guy named Gavin Pallone who's a big-time Hollywood producer, but also a poker player, and I've played many, many, many hours with this gentleman. And I noticed that he was responding to some people. So I did a little research and found I didn't even realize that he was the executive producer of the movie.
Wow,
so I was
small world.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, wow, that's so weird. So I immediately contacted Gavin to find out. Because, I mean, this was a guy that he owned like 5 dogs and cats. And when we would play poker together, he would routinely leave the game to go take care of his animals. So I knew how much he liked his animals more than people. I mean, in all fairness, Gavin is not a people person. He's the first person to admit that. He's not a people person at all. But he is, he loves his animals. So which made me even more. And I was like, so he came out and said, he's like, I was as outraged as anybody else. I'm doing research. I'm trying to find out. Anyway, I recently put on Twitter and on my Facebook page a really long article written by him, penned by him, regarding what happened and everything that they went through. And he addressed everything, full transparency, didn't hide behind anything. And I am now in full support of this movie, and I will go see it. And I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, I actually read the long article that he penned myself, and it was really surprising to me the difference between what he wrote and what was actually put out as far as the videos that you mentioned.
Yeah, no, obviously, TMZ. I don't think it comes to anybody's surprise that they are a, somewhat sensationalism. I mean, you can make the argument that almost all media is about sensationalism and getting clicks and getting viewers. And I think TMZ obviously certainly high on that list. But anyway, it was just I found it, some of the things that he pointed out were really, really interesting. The way they pieced it together and didn't really tell the whole story. And he got into it with PETA as well. And I've always thought PETA was ridiculous. Personally, I've always thought they're just. I was like, they are just. What are they doing? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's interesting though, because as you saw from that, the power of social media, because, the TMZ put out the video and it was just huge. It spread so fast. Like people were saying, who are dog lovers, I'm not going to see this movie. I'm going to boycott, blah, blah, blah. I mean, and like you said, that was just in 72 hours or something. But then when the guy that actually penned everything, it was like, oh, okay, there's another side to this story.
Well, and there's always more than one side. I found it surprising when I first looked at the video. I was like, wow. I was like, LA, it's just so weird because you would think that, there is, there's so many dog lovers here. And generally speaking, you're not working on a dog film unless you love dogs. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was just kind of like, what? I was just a little bit surprised by the whole entire thing, and I was like, wow, okay, this is weird. But I was like, but you saw it. I mean, you saw it with your own eyes, and I was like, this is terrible. You know what I mean?
No, it looks so. I was just trying to imagine if somebody was doing that to one of my dogs, I would have a fit. There's no way I would stand for that. So to see this dog and the way it was shot, the dog looked, really terrified, and it looked like it was almost drowning. It was just not a pleasant video to watch. So,
no, not at all. I mean, it was, frankly, it was actually quite disturbing and quite ugly. And for anybody who loves dogs or anybody who's a human being, you see that and you're like, maybe not. But after talking to Gavin, after seeing what he was tweeting, and if you read the article, I think you can definitely, get pretty excited about possibly seeing this movie. Anyway, there you have it. I just think that was kind of that. Anyway, so I'm going to see that movie. I'm supporting it. By the way, guys, on the screen, just so you guys know, so Dr. Cardner, very quickly, you can follow her at Dr. Trisha Cardner on Twitter. She writes tons of books. She is awesome. You'll notice that I am also playing an online game, okay? I am actually playing Stacey Sullivan Heads Up right now. Like I said, we are playing a 100 big blind freeze out. This is going to be kind of the new thing. I'm going to be playing poker while we talk poker and do other things. Oftentimes, I will be playing and talking to the same person. But Dr. Cardner got back to me too late, so I grabbed somebody else. Basically, that's
I know. If I would have known sooner, I could have gotten everything squared away. But yeah, I'm behind the times. What can I say?
You and me, we're facing off later, okay?
That's right. We're going to go heads up for rolls, bro.
Done.
And that's
okay.
all I can say.
My roll is like $14. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, good. Fair enough. Hey, I want to get into anger management.
Ooh, juicy topic.
Table. Now, obviously, we're going to focus more on, at the poker table and in the poker arena. But obviously, it works in other avenues as well. And my question for you basically is, when you feel, and for those of you out there who have some anger management issues, who have a temper. My question for you essentially is, do you all have a trigger? Because I do. And this was something like my father had some bad temper issues, and it was something I've always had to deal with. And as I've gotten older, I have been able to understand and realize what the trigger is and go forth from that, and kind of like figure out ways to like cope with my anger. And I was wondering how many students and how many players, how many students come to you with this issue, and what do you tell them?
That's an interesting question. I think I don't get that many people who come to me specifically for anger. They typically are coming for other reasons, but maybe anger is something that is an issue, but maybe they just haven't thought of it as the issue, if you know what I mean. Another thing that comes up too, it's not anger related, but it's a similar sort of thing where it tends to be a problem, but people aren't necessarily coming to me for that problem, and that's procrastination. So I just wanted to throw that out there. They're two separate issues, but
Right.
a lot of the times they can be driving us. And maybe we think, oh, I just need to study more, or I just need to, if I know the math better, then I'm not going to get as angry, or something like that, right? Not realizing that anger, is perfectly natural, because like if someone's going to, I don't know, poke you with a stick, a metaphorical stick, you're going to get angry at some point if you're a human being, most of us, right?
Right.
So it's very natural. So it is something that we do need to come up with strategies to cope with. And I like that you said you have been able to come up with some things for yourself. I'm kind of wondering, when did you kind of come to the understanding that there were very specific triggers for you at the poker table? Like, did
Well, it
it
wasn't
come to you all at
necessarily
once?
to be honest, it wasn't necessarily at the poker table. It was really in life for me.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was really life. And like I think, like many people that have issues or problems with their lives, for me, it was very much when I hit rock bottom, in my
Mm-hmm.
opinion. When I had basically thrown away a relationship because of my temper. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I came to the conclusion that I no longer um, I no longer wanted to sacrifice good relationships that I had in my life for because I could not contain my temper. And I
Mm-hmm.
always noticed in my life that when you yell, when you use expletives, when you lose your temper, you've lost the argument. You can no longer have it. You like whatever argument you had, whatever case you might have made against a buddy or a colleague or a wife or a husband, whatever it might be, you've lost. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
you don't have anything. So for me, I watched my dad. I think I've said this on the show before. I've watched my dad like literally just lose his mind, and I was like, I don't want to be that. So it was really a conscious choice to finally go, no, I need to make some changes. So I actually saw a therapist for it, and we talked
Mm-hmm.
about it. But for me, it was more based on life, and then I was able to apply that to poker as well.
Now, when you decided, hey, I'm going to work on this, you needed to come up with some strategies, right, to cope with your anger.
Yes.
So, what kind of strategies did you end up using? Because I think this could be helpful for listeners if we kind of talk about some of the strategies. Because as I already pointed out, we cannot get rid of anger per se. We can't, all emotions, they're normal. So, it's not that we get rid of them, but we need to learn how to work with them.
Yeah, I can buy that. I can buy that. Okay, so for me, once I recognized that I had an issue that I really wanted to deal with,
Mm-hmm.
um, once I realized that I had an issue that I wanted to deal with, I tried to figure out, really try to focus on, when was I getting angry?
Yes.
What was getting me angry? And by the way, at the table, sometimes this can be like, some guy plays bad, or some guy just like I make a move and it doesn't work or whatever it might be, and I'm playing against a player and I'm like, oh, and I find there's like this instinctive moment where I'm like, I'm gonna get that guy. And I even think that, and I'm sure some of you at home might be thinking the same thing. I feel like I'm having this almost private session with Dr. Cardner, and all you guys are listening in, which is cool. But I feel like, in all fairness, like I can't be alone in that. Like when you lose to somebody, you want to get them. And I've often pointed out, I say, poker needs to be an egoless game. Leave your ego at the door, be smart, and, be smart, leave your ego at the door. Sorry, and basically, it's not that guy's chips. Just keep playing poker. Try to make the best decisions you possibly can each and every time. But those instincts still rise up in me as well, even to this day. And then I've gotten better at recognizing them and almost accepting it. This is going to be weird. Okay, so I took I had a ski snowboard lesson many, many years ago with a former U.S. ski team teacher. Okay.
Nice.
It was amazing. I mean, she was like former U.S. ski team, and then she was on the extreme team. I mean, it was ridiculous. She like jumped out of airplanes and went skiing. It was just unbelievable. What's the thing she did? Anyway, so we would, so I met her and everything, and while she was able to teach me a ton about actually being on the mountain, she also taught me a lot mentally. And she enabled me to be able to deal with my fear, not only on the mountain snowboarding, but in life as well, where she basically pointed out, she's like, listen, you've got there's a bunch of like creatures in your life. There's a bunch of like, let's just assume there's a bunch of creatures inside your body, okay? That are, each one does something for you. One is fear, and one is one is fear, one is for shyness, one is for courage, and each one of them is like talking to you, like little, like the little people inside your brain that are talking to you. Okay. Anyway, sorry to like belabor this, as I'm talking in circles here. I know it's awful. Anyway, so let's assume. So she was saying that all of these little people, all these little voices in your head, have a purpose. Okay. And
exactly.
You don't push them away. The fear voice is actually really, really important. The fear voice is really important, and she was pointing out that without it, you might kill yourself. Like
exactly.
So you need that, because the fear like gives you like, whoa, what are you doing? Don't jump off that hill. That's a 30-foot drop. That's gonna hurt. Okay. Whatever it might be. Anyway, but she said sometimes our fear voice can be a little bit irrational. So she said, when it comes to fear, it was like, sometimes you've got to acknowledge the fear and then do it anyway. And I've already tried to teach my son that. I go, hey, no, it's okay to be scared. Be scared and then do it anyway. I go, fear is part of life, and I try to tell him that. So I think and I'm sorry, this is a really, really roundabout way of getting back to temper, where I was like, anger is, there's a voice inside me, there's a trigger inside me that says, anger, go get him, okay? And I don't want to push that down, because I don't think it's going to work. I don't think pushing that voice away is going to work. Instead, I'll acknowledge it and try to figure out why. Why is this happening, and how can I deal with it in a more professional manner? It was funny, I talked to my dad about it many years later, and I said, Dad, how do you deal with it? And he goes, well, you know what? He goes, as I got older, not only did I realize that I was being an asshole, but he's like, I also realized that I never acted this way at work because I couldn't. There were real consequences. And I think there are certain situations where the consequences aren't there, that we let our temper get the best of us. It's almost, I can use the analogy of, you hook up with the guy or you hook up with that girl because you're quote unquote drunk. That's not why you hooked,
Right.
that's not why you hooked up with them. But now you have a built-in excuse to do it. Okay?
Yes.
If I'm playing hockey, I'm on the rink. I can go after and I can punch some guy in the face because there's a referee there. There's no real consequences. The only consequence I'm going to get is I'm going to get a 2-minute penalty. Big deal. You know what I mean? The reason we can yell,
Mm-hmm.
the reason my wife can come home from work and yell at me, or vice versa, and I can yell at her, is because generally speaking, there's no consequences. Yep, she gets mad at me and she forgives me, right? That's why we get mad at
Mm-hmm.
family. We can get really mad at family because we know they're not going to leave us. But the reason we don't lose our
Exactly.
temper at work is because there are consequences and we know them. So that kind of like my dad kind of got to this point, and I want your input here because I've rambled on way too long. But my dad basically got to the point where he goes, well, he figured out that if he was able to do it on a at work, then he certainly was able to do it in other aspects of his life.
Exactly.
And that's where it got to. Now, but I still think it's something that a lot of people deal with because I think anger is the seeds of tilt.
Well, absolutely. I think anger it pops its head up whenever we get around feelings of injustice or unfairness.
Right.
That's when it pops up, right? And then the ski coach that you worked with was actually quite wise. Maybe hadn't even studied psychology formally, but had picked up a lot of things, or maybe had studied it. I don't know. But just several things that you said really, struck a nerve with me in a good way. First of all, emotions exist to give us information, and that's what she was telling with her, metaphor. So yeah, if you weren't afraid of anything, you just do everything and you get flattened by a bus, right?
Right. Well, and then, by the way, the whole point of that was she was very zen-like, and her whole point was, when I first started snowboarding with her, I didn't have a helmet, and I was still a little bit trepidatious. So she went out the first day. She was like, "Let's get you a helmet." And then I will tell you, by the end of the day, I was technically a better snowboarder than I was at the beginning of the day by maybe 20%. But if somebody were watching me, I probably looked twice as good or 3 times as good simply because the irrational fears that were holding me back were no longer holding me
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, when does the emotion cross over? And instead of being helpful, it's hurtful. And that's what most of us aren't really trained to recognize that. It takes us a really long time. And then I also think what you said about not trying to push it down. I'm of a mind, and I actually wrote about this in Peak Poker Performance. It doesn't do us any good to try and push the emotion down. Acceptance and acknowledgement is a far healthier way to go. Because the thing of it is, when you try and push it down and you're like, okay, I'm not angry. I'm not angry. But there is that part of you that knows that you are angry. And so then you're sort of wasting mental resources on the two parts of your brain almost, or not brain, but really your mind, warring back and forth. So it just ends up being just a mess on so many levels.
So, okay, so you said you don't have that many students that do come to you with this issue. How many?
So I'm not saying they don't have it. I'm saying they don't come and say, this is something I need to work on.
Right. How often does somebody come to you with an issue that where you see that the issue is not just in poker, it's a crossover to life as well?
I mean, all the time, because poker and life, to me, poker is like a metaphor for life, right? So if you have difficulties on the poker table, you probably have difficulties off the poker table, and vice versa.
Oh, by the way, guys, my match with Stacy, she was beating me she had like 22,500, I had 17,000. She got trip nines in that one hand. If you guys want to check it out, once again, Crush Live Poker has a YouTube channel, so this entire show will be recorded video as well, so you can watch it. I didn't think that she would have a 9 there very often, and I didn't think she would bet a queen that large, so I called her down with bottom pair, and obviously I was wrong. But she has been kicked off. She is trying to get back on, so we'll see if we can conclude that match. Hopefully we can.
No, she
Yeah,
needs to get back in there.
yeah, especially since she's winning. By the way, very rarely, usually there's technical issues on my end. Apparently this is a technical issue on her end because I've got all sorts of stuff going on and we're having no problems whatsoever.
All right. You were really, getting to that pro level then on
I'm
executing all this stuff.
I'm pretty excited. Once again, guys, if you want to, you can follow Dr. Trisha Cardner at Dr. Trisha Cardner, spelt out, on Twitter. I follow her all the time. In fact, if you check out one of my tweets, if you don't know where she is, she's in there. She's got so much going on. You can go to drtrishacardner.com to find out a lot about it, okay?
And you know what else they can do? I released right at the end of the year a free course called Rev Up Your Poker Success.
I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, and they can sign up for it at peakpokermindset.com, or if they go to my website, it'll direct them over there. But it's a free course. Over 200 people have already signed up and gone through it. And by people, it's all poker players, realistically, because that's who I hang with. Those are my peeps. But
your peeps.
People have gone through it. Yeah, they've been telling me like how awesome it is and how much it's just really given them a little kick in the pants to set their goals. And I don't just talk about setting the goals, but I talk about strategies for how you can achieve the goals. And yeah, it's video, it's audio, it's all kinds of stuff. And hey, it's free.
Hey, question for you, by the way, from Twitch 7P.
Yes.
In my chat. It says, question for the doctor. I own her first book, Positive Poker. How does her second book differ? Does the second book build off the first?
Yes, it does. That is an excellent question. Positive Poker came about because I wrote a dissertation for a doctorate in counseling psychology, and I had interviewed a handful of tournament players who had all had over $1 million in earnings. And basically was looking for, what are the psychological skills, traits, and attributes that they say have contributed to their success. So that was basically what Positive Poker was, explaining what all those traits and skills and abilities. Peak Poker Performance is a lot more of the performance coaching that I do with poker players. And it's a lot more of a how-to. So here's the problem. Here's how you fix it. So there's a lot in there on managing your emotions, how to stop procrastinating, how to build habits. I also talk a lot about the brain and how it operates, and then how you can use that information to optimize to get better performance. So it's really much more of a how-to, coach yourself kind of book. So go get it. It's also available in audio for your listeners who may not like to read, but they don't mind listening. I read every word of it, so you can get that recording.
Guys, you want to make yourself a better human being, read more. I don't read enough.
I love reading. But if you don't like to read, there's so much now on audiobooks or even, with podcasts and things. So if you don't like to read, you can still get the information through listening. But I am a big believer in read something or listen to something inspirational every single day, and it will make you a better person.
Hey, obviously, you work with your mental game. When you play poker, because for anybody who doesn't know, by the way, Dr. Cardner is not just a mental game coach for poker players. She's a poker player in her own right. And my guess would be that you will be at the World Series. World Series poker schedule is out today. Did you see that?
I saw it. I already booked my condo that I'm going to stay at. So, I booked it like a few days ago, and I'm ready.
How long are you coming out for?
I'm going to get there May 31st, and I'm rolling out, unless something amazing happens, July the 12th.
Wow, you're there 6 weeks.
I always come for 6 weeks.
Do you have any seminar or anything like that going on, or any mental, or are you just playing this whole time?
I mean, in years past, I have done some seminars and things. I don't know what'll happen yet because it's still, kind of early. But, so I might be doing something like that. But I'm definitely going to play as much as is humanly possible.
That is fantastic.
And I just got back. I played the World Series circuit up in Durant, Oklahoma. So I just got home from that. Sadly, I didn't cash in anything. I had some deep runs, and I was pleased with my play because I had been working on some things. I don't know if I should name drop or if I shouldn't name drop.
Name drop.
Name drop? Okay. So I've been working on some things. I've been getting a little bit of coaching from Matt Berkey and Jordan Young, who's known as Jai Master 11 online.
Right.
And so they've taught me a few things, a few new tricks and strategies. So that was my main goal in going to the Durant stop, was like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to try some of these, techniques out. And so I did, and I have to say, like, my mind was blown in some, in some spots.
Well,
So
what was I mean?
I don't want to,
Okay,
huh?
give me one highlight from. I want to ask you two questions before I let you go. First off, give me
Okay.
one highlight. What was the highlight for you? Not necessarily for everybody else. What was the highlight for you at this thing?
I mean, it's just, I felt so good that, so Matt Berkey teaches something on range advantage, range disadvantage, range neutral. That's kind of, I mean, he's not the one who necessarily has the trademark on this theory, but he's like perfected it. And so he taught it to me, and then Jai Master, has kind of reinforced my learning on that. And so I went in there and I was like, okay, what I'm going to do is, irrespective of the cards, I'm just going to be looking at the boards in terms of range advantage, disadvantage, or neutral. And then I am going to structure my betting or lack thereof just based solely off that in spots, where I just don't have cards. And it was just like amazing at how well it works. When you get really good at classifying not only your range, but their range, and then how those ranges interact with the boards, and, which boards are going to be advantageous to you versus which ones are advantageous to them. It almost like you could have an Uno card and a napkin and you're still good.
Yeah.
And so that was like super empowering, and I loved it.
I love it. I mean, in all fairness, it looks like Stacy's back. In all fairness, it's funny. I come from a stud background, and I played stud 8, where
Mm-hmm.
a lot of that game is playing your opponent's board,
Mm-hmm.
and it's interesting because you if you don't play if you play your opponent's board, that's what the game is. So that
Mm-hmm.
kind of I think that background helped me in No Limit. And we're always telling people, like, you're not betting based on what you have. You have to bet based on what your opponent's range is,
Right.
So we're always pointing out that
And
it's really smart.
yeah.
That's really
And
interesting.
also
Go ahead.
what your range looks like to them
Oh, yeah.
as well. You know what I mean? And so just, if people can master that, and I'm not saying I mastered it, but I'm saying I got a whole lot better at it. But yeah, like I said, you can have an Uno card and a napkin, and you're good to go.
I like the quote. I like the quote. Okay, I want to ask you one other question about you and your game.
Okay.
If you, as a mental game coach, you're
Yes.
probably more aware than most people. And my question for you is, what what is your weakness at the poker table from a mental standpoint?
Gosh, that is like a tough one. Hmm. I, gosh, I'm like, I don't want to say like I
I
don't
mean,
have
you're
any
not. You
weaknesses
can't. You
at the poker
certainly can't.
table, but because
I
that's
mean, you're
not
not
true.
impervious, right? I mean, none of us are. I mean, I'm not. Like Bart is not a very. Bart is not a very. He's not a very tilty guy. That's one of his strengths.
Right,
And
right.
we all have our strengths and our weaknesses. I'm just wondering, like in your case, like we're not impervious. None of us are. We're human beings, and I'm just
Yeah,
curious
for sure.
what is yours. I mean, can you recognize your own weakness?
I mean, I feel like, gosh, that's a tough question, but I would say I am very sensitive to something that you kind of had mentioned before, and I'm sensitive to injustice and unfairness. So I have to be careful about that, because I can notice that voice in my head that will be like, I'm going to get that guy. But I try and recognize it really quickly, because I do know that whenever you're like, I'm going to get that guy or that girl, as the case may be, oftentimes you're shooting yourself in the foot, because you have to make the best decisions without, letting any of that get into it. But I do notice that will come up for me sometimes.
And what do you do? I mean, what do you do if you feel that way? What's your first impulse when you do feel that coming on?
Well, I know enough to say, okay, I need to step back for a minute. I need to do some deep breathing. I need to get myself recentered, refocused, because if I'm focusing on that, then I'm not focusing on a lot of other really important things in the game. And so I need to get back on track. So, I'm pretty good about doing some self talk and, maybe, like I said, deep breathing, taking a little break if I need to, something like that, and just sort of resetting myself. I'll make a real conscious effort to say, hey, you need to reset yourself, and
Right.
don't worry about that guy or that girl and I just have to slap myself around a little bit.
I like that. I like that. If you ever need help slapping yourself around, let me know. Hopefully I'll be at this series this summer as well. Hey, listen, Dr. Cardner, we love you as always. Get out of here. Work on your game, and we'll talk to you before the summer for sure.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Love you, Dr. Cardner.
Okay. Love you. Bye.
Honestly, she is awesome. Love her. So we got Stacy back on the line. Ooh, I flopped an open-ended straight draw here. I have pulled it back to virtually even, courtesy of a runner straight against Stacy. Couldn't have been better. Ooh, look at this. Tuchman makes the straight. Ooh, if she's got a little 10 here, that would be beautiful. I had the diamond as well. I have the queen of diamonds just in case she does have diamonds. She's going to raise. I'm not going anywhere, obviously. You got to be kidding me. Unless she has king, queen of diamonds or something like that. If she has diamonds, I could be in a lot of trouble. Well, she can't king, queen of diamonds. Obviously, I have a queen of diamonds. Anyway, more poker in a second, guys. I've taken the lead against Sully. I have taken the lead against her. Okay, so we have talked about mental game with Trisha Cardner. We've talked about, well, I'm through my one beer. I'm going to get to another beer in a second. We've talked Trump. We've talked football. I have mentioned the free roll. Once again, guys, February 8th is the next live show I have. Next Wednesday, I am in Prague, okay? Next Wednesday, I am in Prague, and I am, so there's no live show. I'm going to record a show. The next live show will be Wednesday, February 8th, and I have a free roll. If you want to win if you want to play me heads up and win $20 possibly, all you have to do is head over to iTunes and write a review for us here, Under the Gun podcast. Write a review. All the people that write reviews, I will put you in a hat. The winner will play me heads up. If you beat me, you get $20. No questions asked. Okay? Very simple. Let's get into a couple of hands that I played. One that I thought I played very well, and one that I played like a complete donkey. Okay? Oh, pressed that too early. Cobra Kai, Heck Jacobo, Luder328. Luder, no, I did not do a hand of the day yet. I will be doing that very, very shortly. Like right now. Anyway, so let's see. Should I do the good hand or the bad hand first? I will tell you, this is still a work in progress, me playing heads up while I'm doing a podcast. Because obviously my attention is somewhat diverted to this heads up match as well. But I'm doing my best to try to pay attention to both. But hopefully I'm doing an okay job. By the way, right now I am up on Sully. I have 21,000 chips to her about 16.5. She just 3-bet me though. Ooh, I flopped top pair. Good times. Anyway, why don't we do a bluff gone wrong, okay? So, we had a couple of limps, and it limped around. I am in the small blind in a 5-5 game, and I have 7 deuce of hearts. Obviously, it's not a hand that I'm ever playing, but I have no choice. I'm in the blind, so I see the flop. The flop comes out with a flush draw, and I've got a backdoor straight draw as possibility as well. Anyway, I lead out. No, I'm sorry. I was actually in the big blind. My apologies. I was in the small blind. I'm in the big blind because there was a guy behind me. Anyway, he checks. I bet. Guy on my left calls, and the guy on my right calls. So one guy folded. Okay? Anyway, the turn brings a possible straight draw for me as well. So the flop was like ace 3 9 2 hearts, and the turn was like the 4 hearts. So now I've got like a 5 gives me the straight, or any heart obviously gives me the flush. Now on the turn, and Bart and I have talked about this before as well. In limped round pots, obviously you don't want to go broker in a limped round pot, but oftentimes the pot is small enough that a lot of players aren't going to fight for it all that hard. So you can put a little bit more pressure on them. So I said, I think a flush draw is going to call on the flop, but I thought unless it's the nut flush draw, and a nut flush draw would have had a pair of aces as well, and might have played the hand a little bit harder. I think unless it's the nut flush draw, I think there's a pretty good chance that, I can get like a medium flush draw to fold, okay? So anyway, I actually kind of bombed the turn. I bet like 90% pot on the turn. And the player on my left folds, sorry. He folds. And the player on my right, who was in the small blind, who limped in, he now raises me. Now again, the board is like ace, 9, 3, 2 hearts. Turn is the 4 hearts. Sorry, no, turn is a 4, okay? It brings a backdoor club draw, okay? And he now raises me, and I'm trying to decide. Now, this guy he had gotten tricky. He had gotten a little bit tricky earlier on, and I was trying to figure out, okay, what kind of hands is he doing this with? Could he be doing this with a flush draw? Could he be doing it with 2 pair? All sorts of things. Now, the mistake that he made, and I have talked about this before as well, is he put himself in a situation where he bet an amount where he basically would have had to. He's going to have to like lose all his money. So I was already factoring in so let's say I bet 90 on the turn, right? And let's say I bet 90 on the turn. He raised me to like 225, and he only had like another like 250 behind. He was just never going to fold. You know what I mean? So like I felt really, really strong that if I had hit my 5 or I hit a heart, I was going to get all his chips anyway, because I felt like he was going to bet the turn and then probably be too committed to fold anything else. Okay? Pretty bad run out for my pair of aces here. But we're going to chop it up. Chop that baby up. Anyway, so I decided it was a pretty easy call. Not only was the actual odds that I was getting was probably correct. I had, in my opinion, I probably had 12 clean outs, any 5, any heart to win the hand. So I'm getting about 24% equity, which means I need to be getting 3 to 1, and with his small raise size, I was essentially getting that price. Plus I thought I was getting the implied odds. Now, the only caveat was that I thought there was a legitimate chance that he was doing this on a draw, and could he have like 4x of hearts, a bigger actual flush draw than me, So that's kind of where I was at, and it became a kind of an interesting situation. So, because I think you always have to be aware when you're making calls, because you think you have big implied odds that maybe you don't, and maybe they're actually reverse implied odds. Anyway, so I thought about it for a moment here. I did a little float here, and I checked it back to make my hand look like a queen, by the way. For anybody of you at home, I raised in the button with King 10. Stacy 3-bet me, and then continuation bet on an Ace Queen 3 board. So I had a gut shot with King 10. And then, she just got folded or sat out. I don't know what happened. No, she's back in. And I feel like floating and then checking back could make my hand look like a queen a lot and force her to fold a lot of what she has, like if she has a pocket pair or something like that. Anyway, so I decided to call. The turn is a blank, okay? Actually, no, turn is a club, okay? Now, I do not have a club in my hand. And my opponent bet, and now he bet really small. Now remember, I had made it like, I bet 90, and my opponent check raised me to like 225. So the pot now is like $510, $525, and he bet 100 into it. Now, I often talk about being able to recognize blocker bets and attacking those blocker bets, because I think that's great if you can do it. But in this particular case, I don't have any blockers. So I made the mistake here. So my opponent bet 100, and my first thought was, that's a weak bet. He's scared. Okay? Now, I want to say in a podcast maybe 3 or 4 podcasts ago, maybe a month ago, I talked about a hand where I check raised a river because I had the ace of hearts on it, and there was a 3-heart board. And because of the way the hand played out, I didn't think my opponent had a flush. And the fact that I had the ace of hearts made it even easier for me to make that play, and all these situations. And there was a lot of reasoning behind why that bluff made sense and was a good play. and it was the correct decision in that spot. Regardless of whether it worked or not, it turned out it did work. But regardless of whether it worked or not, that particular situation, it was a good spot to put a bluff in there because of all of the factors that were in there. And this is something that I always want to point out to you at home. Those of you that are listening, a lot of times people go, well, what's your favorite hand to bluff with? It's not hands, it's situations, okay? Anyway, so continuing on with this, there were a million good reasons why the other hand was a really good bluff. Now, this particular spot, the only reason to bluff this spot, the only reason at all, was essentially because my opponent bet 100 into 525. When, let's be honest, I do that sometimes. Now, I don't think this particular player is on that level. I don't think this player is necessarily, checking to, is necessarily putting in a small bet to induce a bluff because he's going to put it like he's going to put a false blocker bet out there. But I got to be aware that maybe 5% of the time he's doing that. And maybe 10% of the time he's just betting small with a monster because he wants to get paid. And he doesn't know, what else to do. He's just not aware. Anyway, so in the prior hand where I bluffed, I probably had 6 different reasons why bluffing made a lot of sense. And when I compared that to this particular spot, I had one reason to bluff. The one reason was he bet 100 into 525. It looks like a blocker bet. Let me take advantage. And so I moved all in. And like I said, he had like 300 more behind. I thought he was somewhat weak. Okay. Turns out he actually had more than I thought, by the way. He had like 350 more behind after I bet the 100. Anyway, and I know obviously my sizing was off when I said this to you guys as well. But anyway, because now that I'm remembering exactly what I had to pay him when he called me, I know I was off. So in all fairness, like I knew the reason I called the turn was A, I was getting the right price, and I still think the turn call was good. A, I was getting the right price, and B, I thought there were some implied odds. No, I was not probably going to get all of his chips, but maybe I would have. Maybe if he bets 300, I would have gotten the last 300. The fact of the matter was he actually had like 600 behind. So scratch what I said 13 seconds ago. Anyway, in this particular case, he bets 100, and he had about another 450, 500 behind, because I found that out. Thought he had a little bit less. I thought he was weak, so I decided to move all in with 7 high. And he snapped with ace deuce of clubs. So the funny thing was, he was actually, my read on him was somewhat right, that he does do this sometimes with draws. The funny thing was, he actually had top pair. He had the ace of clubs, and then he turned the flush draw, and he felt comfortable enough to let's go, I'm going to go with this hand. And then he rivered the flush and he rivered the nuts. Pretty horrendous play by me, in my opinion, because number one, I knew the guy was capable of doing this with a draw. The fact that I had a flush draw made it a little bit more likely that if he was doing it with a draw, he probably had the club draw and not the heart draw, the backdoor draw. The fact of the matter was, I don't have a club in my hand. I had no blockers in my hand. I had nothing. I was literally just spewing. And this is me pointing out to all you at home, even pros fuck up sometimes. I make mistakes all the time. In fact, if you were to somehow be able to edit together my 20 worst hands of my life, you would think I was the worst poker player alive. And this was it was a horrendous play by me. I'm not going to lie. There was nothing I did good about it at all, period. Just a bad play. Anyway, that was that. And that was a bad play. There's another hand I played that I thought I played quite well. Hang on one second as I readjust my head. Sometimes when you wear a baseball cap and microphones, you don't know this unless you do it. Sometimes when you wear a baseball cap and a microphone, the little top thing of the baseball cap will beat into your head and really hurt. So, anyway, mine was hurting, which is why I now have had hair and I'm moving on. Moving on to my second beer, by the way, as well. I'm having a New Belgium Citradelic Tangerine IPA. I got a few beers that like I thought maybe if Molly wanted to have one, my wife, my pregnant wife, if she wanted to have one beer, she could, on a little bit of the lighter side. By the way, heads up, update on our heads up match is I am beating Stacy. I have 22,600. Stacy has 13,500. Again, we're playing on this home thing, which is really cool, but we are playing for $100. Anyway, let's get to the next hand. So that was one hand that I played about as bad as possible, okay? And I think sometimes we get ourselves into situations like that where, and I always point this out, when you bloat a pot, I always say this, when you bloat a pot, your opponents are that much more likely to make a mistake because suddenly there's a lot of money in the middle to fight for. Now, my opponent check-raised the turn, bloating that pot up, and when he did that and then made his hand in the river and bet small, I was then in a situation where I was like, oh, there's a lot of money in there. He's not that strong. Let me fight for it, you know? When in reality, you know, I really should have just let it go, you know? Pick a better spot. You know, I talk about, you know, suffering win every handitis. It's a disease. You don't want it. Terrible disease, by the way. Anyway, there's another hand that I played that I thought I played quite well. So I was in another game at Hustler, 5-5. Once again, the buy-in is 300 to 1,000, as always. And I'm on the button. And it was a very limpy game with maybe one raise, not a ton of three betting. There were like 3 regs pros in the game, me included, and 6 basic fish. Anyway, our spots, call them what you will, okay? And it was a typical game at Hustler, okay? It was a good game. Anyway, so I'm in seat number 6, and I'm on the button. And it's straddled pot. And you get a couple of limps, and I decide to limp in with Queen 9 suited, okay? Now, sometimes I'll raise with that hand, but oftentimes I will... I will often limp as well. I'll either limp or I will raise, depending on who's in the pot, who I'm trying to isolate, so forth and so on. Now, in this particular case, I didn't mind bringing in a couple of players. The guys in the blinds weren't very good. The guy in the straddle was decent, you know? So I will sometimes raise there, but in this particular case, I decided not to. You know, you mix it up every once in a while. So I decide to limp. Small blind limps, okay? Big blind actually limped as well. And the straddle now raises, and he raised it to $50, okay? Now, I wouldn't normally call that. Now, one player folded in the field before me. One player called, and I wouldn't normally call this except the fact that I'm in position. And as I always say to you guys, I look for excuses to play hands in position, look for excuses not to play hands out of position. And also, I thought if I called, I would get one of the players in the blind to call as well. And I thought Queen 9 suited would do fairly well against the straddle's opening range there when he's like raising out of position. Now, by the way, the guy in the straddle was a reg and he's a pro. Okay? Anyway, flop comes out Queen 5-5. No suits. Okay? I had a backdoor flush draw. And he bets out. By the way, both blinds folded. So my initial thought that one of the blinds would come along for the ride was wrong. Okay? So a little bit frustrating, but you know, you move on. So we're seeing this one 3 ways. I don't know if I would have called 3 ways, but there was one, the guy that was between me and the reg was a pretty big spot, and he was fairly deep. I want to say our effective stacks, the spot probably had about $1,100. I probably had about $2,100, and the other reg had about $1,600. Okay? Anyway, so he leads out for about a half pot, standard bet on a Queen 5-5 board. Ooh, I'm going to win this with ace high. I love winning hands with ace high. The spot gets out of the way, and obviously I'm not going anywhere. On a Queen 5-5 board, I have Queen 9, I have top pair. So I call. Now, the turn is an ace, and it's an offsuit ace, does not bring any draws or anything like that. And my opponent bets again. And my initial instinct was like, oh, he's got me beat, right? But then I thought about this a little bit longer. And this is the reason I brought this hand up. Because there's some poker theory and poker analysis on the turn, I believe. My hand, what are the cards that are in my range? Okay? To me, obviously I've got a queen a bunch of the time. And I also have some fives. And I feel like the ace in the turn is a really good card for my opponent to rep, right? But if he actually hit his ace, would he bet it? You know? That's the question. If he hit his ace, would he bet it? Because I'm not convinced that he would. Because I feel like if he hit his ace, like let's say he had a hand like ace queen or let's say he had ace king. Obviously ace queen he's certainly betting. That's the one hand he would bet is ace queen. He would also bet a set of queens. He would also bet a set of aces. These are all hands that he would bet. But my question is, would he bet ace jack? Would he even bet ace king? Because my hand looks like it could be a 5. You know what I mean? Because frankly, if he bets his ace jack, he's going to put a lot of pressure on a queen. I mean, he's a good player. Can he expect to put a c-bet out there with ace jack, bet the turn with ace jack, and then bet the river with ace jack and get me to call with queen jack or queen 9 or queen 10 the entire way? What is the likelihood that I do that? Right? What is the likelihood that I am going to give him three streets of value with a pair of queens? Okay? I don't know. So that was kind of my thought process. I was like, wow. So when he bets the turn, he's basically telling the story that he's basically telling the story that he's got a 5, a set of queens or a set of aces, maybe ace queen. But even ace queen, while he's got a monster, what do I have? You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's the issue. We just talked about that with Dr. Cardner. Now this is a good player. He's not just pressing buttons. Even if he has a hand like ace queen, what does he put me on? It's a little bit less likely that I have a pair of queens, a little bit more likely that I actually have a 5 in my range. And if I do have a queen, the ace is going to scare me. So you could make the argument that if he has ace queen, the turn is actually a bad card for him. I'm sorry, the turn's an ace. The turn's a bad card for him because it makes it tougher for him to get action. Now, if he has a set of queens or a set of aces, it's worth betting on the off chance that I do have a 5 and he really wants to build a pot up. Okay? But the more I thought about this, the more I kind of came to the conclusion that I didn't think he had many hands that he actually beat. And I thought he probably had some value hand that he put a bet out there on the flop with that he was now turning into a bluff because he's smart enough to know, hey, I can rep the ace. The problem is I just don't think he would have bet an ace. And when you think about the hand a little bit more, I think you can actually come to the conclusion, like if he wanted to win the hand, by the way, I called. And the river was a blank. He checked it, and I checked it back, and I won. And he was like, queen 9, da-da-da-da. Now, if he really wanted to win the hand, the funny way to win the hand, because I was trying to think about it, I was like, how could he win this hand? I didn't talk to him about it, obviously, but, just thinking about it out loud, and obviously discussing it with you guys here, I said, now let's say you had raised, because he had 10s, by the way. He had 10s. So let's say you had raised out of the blind with 10s. You put a c-bet out there on a queen 5-5 board. You got called, and you're like, well, my opponent's either floating, or he's got a queen, or he's got a 5. Okay. Now, if an ace comes on the turn, rather than try to rep that ace, maybe, just maybe, it would actually be a better play to check the turn, I would invariably check it back almost always, unless I had a 5. Now, if a 5 comes off, if I bet the turn, he just happily folds his 10s. He doesn't worry about it. But I'm going to check back a lot of my queens, and when I check back my queens, he can then bet the river for value, quote unquote, make it look like a value bet. And then it'll be very easy for me to put him on a hand like ace-jack, ace-king, something like that. And he might actually get queen 9 to fold. I think the run out, by the way, was queen 5-5, ace 7. So like, if he checks the turn and I check back, and then he bets the river a suitable amount that looks like maybe an ace-jack, how do I fold that? How do I call? Really tough spot, because I would have thought, well, if he was bluffing, why wouldn't he continue bluffing on the turn? It's weird. Sometimes checking back against a good player, sometimes when you check back on the turn against a good player, they'll actually put you on a made hand. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, you check back because you have showdown value, right? You bet with your monsters and you bet with your hands that have no showdown value, but you're checking when you actually have showdown value. So when he checks the turn, maybe I think either A, he's giving up, or B, he's got showdown value. Well, if he's giving up, he's not going to suddenly turn his hand into a bluff on the river, is he? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Anyway, I kind of liked, like I said, I like the way he played that. I like that. Thought that hand was kind of interesting, and I don't think it was, it wasn't like all that sexy or anything. It was just an interesting hand that I thought I played well, and I wanted to kind of talk to you guys about. So here you go, me talking to you about it. Anyway, I don't really have much else to talk about, and normally the podcast would end right now. And in fact, if you want to, the rest of this podcast is essentially going to be me just talking about this heads-up match. So again, if you are just listening to this podcast, you can tune off now. I will tell you very quickly, check out crushlivepoker.com. Use the code DTA401. Get 1 month free. We welcome you. We'd love to have you on board. Go over to YouTube. Subscribe to the Crush Live Poker channel. If you are interested in this, continue watching. I am playing Sully in a 100 big blind freeze out. Who knows how long this will last? She was up on me a little bit. I had her about 2-1, but she has crawled back now. I've got her like 4-3 right now. I've got her like 20,000 to 15,000. The rake in this is unreal. Once again, I'm going to have a free roll for this on February 8th. Look for that. All you have to do is head over to iTunes, write me a review, write under the gun a review on iTunes, and I will take everybody that wrote us a review, put you in a hat. The winner of that will play me. If you beat me, you get $20. Done. No questions asked. You get $20. All you got to do is beat me. Okay? And I might adjust these to make them 50 big blind freeze outs so they go a little bit quicker. We'll see. But that is it. I want to thank Dr. Cardner and everybody else. But like I said, don't go anywhere. I am going to be online. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to watch this. And this is going to be part of the podcast as well. So, and I'm going to talk about the hands, of course. So I've got 9-5 here. I'm going to bet. I checked back the turn. I checked back the flop. Oh, I meant to bet, but I waited too long. I checked back the flop thinking I could kind of rep an 8 here. And I was going to bet the turn and get her off maybe a jack, maybe even ace highs. Turns out I actually hit my 9 on the river and I bet it for value, trying to get called by a pair of 7s or a pair of 8s. Didn't work. She has upped her pre-flop raise size, which I found interesting. She was raising minimum. Now she's making it 600. Okay, we can play that game. See how we play that. I am drinking my lovely beer. I think she's trying to play bigger pots out of position. She's raising me. One thing I have noticed, and this is part of the game of playing heads up, and obviously I'm not a heads up specialist, but I do play it occasionally, is really trying to figure out what your opponent is up to and getting inside them, not from a mental standpoint, from how do they perceive you, and that kind of game. Interesting that she has made the adjustment of raising her pre-flop raise size. Either she wants to end this quicker, or she wants to play bigger pots. against me, which is cool. I also noticed that she's raising with some marginal hands, like in spots where she's got value, but not a ton of value. Um, so I find that interesting. I'm going to bet my pair of tens here. It's a hand in a full ring game. You might check back, and you might even check back this sometimes here. I'm so check back heavy, though. I'm going to bet this. I'm going to bet this one more time. Now, she could have a king. I think I can put some pressure on tens, and I also think I can get some value if she happens to have a queen or a heart in her hand. I'm not getting a king to fold here. That's just not going to happen. And the river trips. Yeah, that's a beautiful river card. Now, she has bet half pot. Should I raise this or just like call? I'll just call it. Yeah, she put a little bit of a blocker bet out there with king deuce, but I don't think I was gonna. I thought I was good. The reason I did not raise in that particular spot is I think that Stacy's a pretty good player, and my thought process on that particular spot. I meant to raise more than that. My thought process on that particular spot was that I didn't think she would call me with the hands that she was blocking with, because it wasn't such a small blocker bet. Got about a 2-1 advantage right now. I have made kings and queens now. If she has a jack in her hand, though, or a queen in her hand, I'm dead. Board is 10, queen, 9, queen, king. We are playing heads up here for $100. Let's take a look at the chat room here. Grinding Daily. Call in, my man. You can call. Of course you can call in. 323-825-5134. The number's right there. Call in, man. Talk. Well, I've got her now. I'm up 24,000 to about 10,000. I tell you, the PokerStars rake is unbelievable for a home game. Why are they raking in a home game? I don't understand this. What are they? Are they trying to get you? Is PokerStars trying to get you accustomed to the fact that they're gonna rape you when you start playing for real money? Unreal. I mean, it's like, what the fuck? Sully has 3-bet this one. Anybody can call in, guys. This is a call-in show, so feel free. More than welcome to. Oh, I'm running well now. I am running well now. I think my 5 was probably good anyway, but, you got to love your hand now. Grinding Daily says, I will call in, but my phone is at 35% and I'm drunk. Well, 35% is not a problem. Drunk is also not a problem. So call in, my man. Just don't say anything stupid. I mean, if you say something stupid, I'll just hang up on you. It's all good. I have about a 3-1 chip advantage now over Sully. She's down to about 40 bigs. Grinding her down. I hate ace-8. Her 3-bet size is a little bit small, I think. I made a mistake with the 3-bet size before. When she makes it 600 more, it's like I'm in position. I'm just getting too good a price not to go anywhere. You know what I mean? Oh, wow. Look at this. I make 2 pair. If she's got a big ace, she's done. This is over. Beer's good, man. Beer is good. She might check raise me all here. Let's see. If she's got an ace, she might. Kind of setting out the play. And obviously, I'm not going anywhere. Could this be the hand? Could this be it? Oh, she's called. River's a 4. Pot is 7,400. She's got 5,100 behind. I'll go for it all. She's got an ace. She's going to call me. I don't think she's going to call me with anything else. Oh, you got to be kidding me. What a cooler. What a cooler. She had top set of aces, and I had ace-8. What a cooler. You got to be kidding me. That is sick. Oh, what a disgusting hand. You got to be kidding me. How does she have? I mean, it's one thing to have like, if she had bottom set, at least I'd be like, okay, fair enough. But man, I hope you guys like this. Like I said, I'm just trying to we're tinkering, we're playing around with the format a little bit. I'm still going to do all the same shows, all the same stuff that I always did on this show, obviously. We still talk Dr. Cardner. I have Rast on. We're still going to be talking all sorts of bullshit, football, fantasy football, all sorts of stuff. But I just figure I'll play heads-up poker while we're doing this. Now, in the future, we can even get ring games as well. So I'll have fun ring games, all sorts of cool stuff. Man, that was so unbelievable. Top set against top two. Oh, disgusting. So we are back to virtually even again. Man. Ugliness. Flop the pair of tens here. Once again, I'm playing heads up against Stacy Sullivan. Winner gets $100. Once again, I'm going to do a free roll on February 8th. If you want your chance to win $20, really simple. Head over to iTunes. Write a review for Under the Gun, the podcast. All the people that write reviews, I will put you in a hat. The winner of that will play me on February 8th at 9:10 Eastern Time. We'll play probably a 50 big blind freeze out. If you beat me, you get $20. If you lose to me, you get nothing. Easy enough, right? Easy game. See, I think this raise size is a little bit more effective. I think when you make it 1,000, it's just too inviting. So I make it 1,200. I 3x it back to her. She calls. I flop my ace. Check it once. Maybe I can just disguise the strength a little bit. She's going to give it up. I get no value from her. Who is calling in? Hello. You are Under the Gun. Who is this?
This is Jonathan Sykes, also known as Grinding Daily on your Twitch stream.
What's up, my man? How are you? What's your name, actually?
Jonathan Sykes.
What's up, John? How are you, man? Where are you from?
Las Vegas.
Dude, cool. Are you a professional poker player?
Not anymore. I mean, I put in maybe 4 hours this month, running at 100 an hour at 1-2.
Right.
But I do have a question. Do you coach people to limp Queen 9 suited? Because that hand's awful.
Well, I mean, you got to be on. Okay, listen. In the games I play in, are you calling just a troll, or are you actually being serious?
Both?
I said, are you calling the troll, or are you actually being serious?
Both.
Okay, fair enough. Okay. In that, like I said, in the majority of cases, nobody I play with would ever accuse me of being, passive. I'm a fairly aggressive player. I open a lot. Because of that, my opens don't get nearly as much credit as some other players. So I occasionally will mix it up with certain hands. And depending. Let me finish. If you're going to troll and you're going to ask a serious question, let me actually answer, okay? So there are certain situations. Okay. So there are certain situations I'll point out. There are certain situations let's say I have a hand like Ace-4 suited, okay? That plays really well multi-way. Now there are certain spots where I'm in late position that I'll raise because, and the reason being, and I always try to point this out to my students or anybody at Crush Live Poker, I go try to figure out what you're actually trying to accomplish, right? What are we trying to accomplish with each raise? What are we trying to accomplish with each bet? So forth and so on, okay?
Okay.
So, instead of just blindly just, raising with, wow, what a flop for her. She flopped the stones. Queen 9 on a Jack 10-8 board, and then let me catch runner trips. Anyway, so rather than... I'm just trying to play and gather this around so while I'm being trolled. So rather than just no, it's cool, dude. Listen. I've been around the game for long enough. I'm cool with trolling, and I'm cool with a serious question either way.
The game. or 12 years, and I've actually been, a follower of you since you and Bart used to commentate at Live at the Bike. So
Awesome, man. Cool.
I've been around as well.
And by the way, hey, listen, I'm not above criticism. There's a lot of times I play a hand badly, and if you're going to tell me why limping in every single time. So anyway, because
I understand the reason for limping in, and I understand, raises will get less credit when you're more aggressive. You'll get more colors, so you don't want to do it with hands. But you don't want to see, a bloated pot 4 or 5 ways with a subpar hand. But the problem is, limping Queen 9 suited, you're not going to make that many nut hands. I mean, you can't make any nut flushes. The only nut straight you can make is Jack 10-8. And then you stack someone who has somehow 9-7, or somehow limps 8s, or sometimes limps 10s, and maybe rarely jacks. I would say jacks would be around the 10 to about 5 to 15%. Sometimes they limp that hand. But jacks is pretty much, the times you're going to flop the nut straight and stack someone who has top set is very rare. So you're going to stack someone who has like Jack 10, 9-7, 10-8, Jack 8 maybe, 10s and 8s, and then you still have to realize that's the perfect board for your hand. You can't flop any other nut flush unless it comes ace king X of your suit. And if you're playing pretty deep, you're not going to get in massive amounts of, you're not going to feel comfortable getting massive amounts of money unless the person you're playing against is a total drooler. If you're telling me that the person that you're playing against is a total drooler, and if you flop top 2 and he'll give you money with bottom 2 or even one pair, then sure, I can.
Well, that's basically where I was going to get to. Okay, let me give you my 2 cents, and then I like I said, I appreciate. I think as poker players, a lot of times we get really, really defensive, and we all let me finish this thought. And we all get really defensive a lot of times, and we don't like to think through hands. And if somebody has a differing opinion than we might have, they are immediately, oh, fuck that guy. That guy fucking knows nothing. Bullshit. Fuck him. I don't like him. That's it. I'm not about. Listen, the reason I feel like I've beaten the game for a long time is because I am open to criticism, and a lot of times I learn things from people all the time. The reason in this particular game, I will just tell you. Now, because I host the game at Hustler, and I play there exclusively right now when I'm in LA, that's my home casino. Because I play there, the players there know me. I also know the players there. It is a decent player pool, but we're talking about players and I'm a fairly noticeable player there. I'm fairly active. I usually have the largest stack. You know what I mean? So these are kind of some of the instances, some of the reasons why. So anyway, there are certain hands that I will mix it up with and occasionally raise with, depending on who I want to play hands with and who I don't want to play hands with. Okay, if that makes sense.
No, I understand 100% of what you're saying, and nothing you're saying right now is foreign or new to me, and you're not really, this isn't a foreign concept. This isn't new information. Like I said, I've been around the game for a considerable number of years, almost a third of my life. I've been a huge follower of yours since Live at the Bike days. So you yourself should know that that's quite a while.
Yeah, dude. Hey, and by the way, there are a lot of guys that followed me in the beginning that are better than me now, and that's fine. That's cool. It's not like it's oh wow, I was 15 years old when I started following you, Tuchman, and now I'm fucking making millions. Great, that's awesome. I'm so psyched for you. But let me just finish this last thought, okay? Because I want to hear what you're going to say. Anyway,
okay.
So in this particular game and in this player pool, remember I'm playing a 5. Now a lot of times I'll play 5-10. I'll play as high as 10-25 if the game is good, okay? But in this particular lineup against Hustler, I'm playing 5-5 300 to 1,000. And a lot of the players are what you might call droolers, okay? They're bad. They're going to lose a lot of money with just top pair. They're going to lose money with small straights. I'm sorry, small flushes. They're going to lose a ton of money with second pair. They're just going to play. So there are situations where, especially in position, I want to see a lot of flops because I know my post-flop ability against the majority of these players is so much better. And maybe that's arrogant, and maybe I'm being naive, and maybe I'm not that good. Hold on, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and I'm not that good. But my thought process on some of these situations is, part of the reason why, sometimes I will raise in late position with a hand like Ace-5 suited, and sometimes I will just limp is because sometimes I want certain players to be in the pot because I know that I'm going to. My risk is, I'm risking $10 in a straddled pot or $5 in a non-straddled pot. And I could theoretically, I'm not even kidding, in a limped pot, I've stacked guys. And it wasn't like nuts over second nuts.
Okay.
Anyway, go.
Maybe. Okay, I would like to interrupt. And
speaking of Queen 9, I have Queen 9 on the button right now.
Like you said, you're a regular at the Hustler or Los Angeles casinos. You're a pretty big name. You're fairly well known, and anyone who is worth their salt as a professional poker player or even a recreational poker player, they will, the people will know who they are when they sit down at the table. Versus other regs, living in Las Vegas, the games here play a bit differently. Unless people are totally wasted, out of their mind, drunk, or they're just clueless, it's very hard to stack people, especially in limp pots. Like, the amount of times I've stacked people in limp pots, it's very rare. I would say that, obviously, I guess it's different in Los Angeles, and just judging by the base of play I've seen when I'm watching live at the bike, it's definitely way more juicier. But I just don't think that it's correct fundamentally to say to limp these hands.
And by the way,
all the time.
Right, but no, it's definitely not. I'm a big believer in this. Let me stop you for a second. I'm a big believer in. I don't think it is necessarily correct fundamentally to do anything all the time.
No, that's not true. That's not true at all. No, there's a fundamental way to play correctly.
Well, I'm going to stop. Being a live poker player, and I don't know if you play online as well or no.
I haven't played online since April 15, 2011.
Okay, fair enough.
So no.
I think live. I've always maintained this, and I will. I'm not against changing my mind if somebody can prove me wrong, but I think live poker is a different animal. I think live poker is. I think there's a lot of shades of gray. I don't think there's necessarily just this is the correct way. And I've seen guys do that. I make fun of Ryan LaPlante all the time for this. I'm like, Ryan, and I'm friends with the guy, but I'm like, dude, he's like, no, that's wrong. And I'm like, really? Because there are certain situations it's like, oh my God, how'd you fold that? That's so exploitable. Yeah, but the guy's never fucking bluffing. Ever. Nothing. Like he has it 100% of the time. And you're like, how do you know that? Because I played with him. You know what I mean?
Ryan and I are not at the term, so
you're what?
I'm not. I was a fan of his, and then he started going on this whole social justice crusade. And he's not, and he overestimates his poker ability, and it's nowhere even near.
Ooh, I love drama. Okay, but I'm trying to point out those. All I'm saying is I don't think that there's there's necessarily it's always. You're kind of breaking up, man. What did you say there? I couldn't hear a word you said. I don't think anybody else did either.
Sorry, I said I love drama too. I just don't think that I don't want drama with potential because I think he's a relatively nice guy. But I think
no. I was joking, dude. Forget the drama. Forget the drama. Let's get back to the poker. My general point is I don't know if there is. I don't know. I'm actually going for thin value here. I was trying to get a call with a deuce or a 4 on the river, betting pot. But anyway, I tend to think that poker is made up of shades of gray, and there aren't really these concretes like this is wrong, this is right all the time. And I think especially, and I think that even goes. I think that's even more true if you play against the same players on a daily basis.
I mean, you're right to an extent that poker is in shades of gray, but there are key points where a correct decision is to be made, and one just has to realize which decision is correct and which is incorrect. And obviously, you can't know that. It's very difficult to know that at the time being, but when you say to play speculative hands like Queen Nine suited, and I'm not saying you because, I mean, if I had, $1,000 to invest, I would invest in you in a 5-5 LA game, hands down.
Hey, dude, don't worry about hurting my feelings. It's not a big deal. We're all adults here. It's cool. You can hurt my feelings. It's not a personal thing.
Right. For new players, and I assume that's your clientele for people who, sign up to Crush Live Poker, is that I think the three main things to poker is be selective on your pre-flop hands. I would say play tight, but play hands that can make nut hands, like sets, full houses, nut flushes, nut straights, stuff like that.
Well, man, keep in mind though, we're not playing. Dude, stop for a second. We're not playing. Do you play a lot of PLO? We're not playing PLO here.
I'm saying basic guidelines for new players who want to get into who want to win at poker.
And that might be. And by the way, that's not necessarily bad advice. I mean, I don't want to get into it all. That might not necessarily be bad advice, but at the same time, I mean, that doesn't mean that as you get better as a poker player, I don't think you can then be looking at it and going, well, I mean, obviously, when I'm putting a hand out there, this is my hand of the week. And every week during my podcast, I try to, analyze one or two hands, okay?
Okay.
And, in this particular case, this was a hand that I played, and my guess would be that 70% of the time I'm probably raising probably 80% of the time I'm raising with Queen 9 suited, and 30%, 25% of the time I'm not raising with Queen 8 suited.
Okay.
Queen 9 suited. So, but in this particular case, I decided to limp in, and the reason being was I did not want to ice. I wanted the blinds in the hand. I wanted them to come along for the ride because those are the type of players that actually could get stacked with just a hand like 9-5 on a 9-deuce-3 board. You know what I mean? And frankly, I mean, I'm not saying they're going to get because I'm not putting all my money in on that either. But you know what I mean?
If I'm lucky if I get two calls from hands like those in Vegas games. And usually it's either one call or a zero. Sometimes they full top pair.
Well, that's part of the game, though. I mean, isn't part of the game making the correct adjustments and adapting to whatever your game is, what the dynamics going on, what your perception is, so forth and so on? You know what I mean?
No, I understand what you mean. It's just...
So this is me making an adjustment in my particular game.
Okay.
And like I said, I'm not saying you're wrong. Like I said, I welcome the criticism because, like I said, that's how we get better. That's how we improve, And I want to continue improving.
Okay.
I just, in this particular case, like I said, I mean, I think a hand there are certain hands that I think in position you can, because I feel like if you're raising all of those hands, you're probably raising too much. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? If I'm raising my entire, think of all the hands that I want to play in position. Think of every single hand that I want to play in position, right? And there's a lot of hands that I want to play in the cutoff and on the button, right? If I'm raising all of them, I'm really exploitable, aren't I?
I didn't say to raise all of them. I mean, you can fold sometimes.
No, I do fold. But I'm saying, there's a lot of hands that on the button. And my motto has always been, and it continues to be, look for excuses to play hands in position. Look for excuses not to play hands out of position. So if I'm on the cutoff or on the button, there's going to be a lot of hands that I want to play And I guess what I'm trying to get at is,
Okay.
if I'm raising all of those, I might be raising too many.
Okay, my question to you is, you said you had queen nine suited and you decided to limp.
Yes.
What other hands would you have limped there? And I'm not saying take out all pocket pairs and take out all ace X's. What's the bottom of your limp range that's not a pocket pair or ace X suited?
In that exact spot with those blinds where they were and the straddle and everything like that.
Right.
I'm trying to think. The bottom of my limping range.
Because I gotta assume like queen nine suited is the bottom of your
queen nine's. I was gonna say queen nine's probably pretty close. You know what I mean? To because like hands that I want to play that are worse, I'm probably coming in for a raise to isolate.
No, but you just said not like 15 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago that your raises are getting called pretty light and you're going multi-ways. So I can't think of like hands you're going to raise to isolate.
No, but I mean, I can still, right, but I can still, no, I'm definitely,
suited then
yeah.
6 off.
Yeah, yes, listen, okay, when I say that, listen, I'm not going to raise on the button in this 5-5 game, and it's not going to get through, but I can raise on the button with certain hands and get it heads up, you know what I mean, or get it 3 ways. And there are probably certain hands. There are certain hands that I probably want to isolate my, one opponent with a little bit more than, queen nine. You know what I mean? Like the problem with isolating with a hand like queen nine is I feel like I'm isolating the hands that actually have me dominated.
The problem with queen nine in this exact situation, the problem I have with queen nine in this exact situation is that you're letting people see a flop for relatively cheap price that, dominate your hand. They have queen 10 off, queen jack off, king queen.
Yeah, but those hands are calling my raise.
All the time?
Yeah, those hands are if I make it 25 or whatever, whatever my standard raise is. Yeah, queen jack, king jack. Those hands are queen jack, king queen. Those hands are calling my raise.
How many people limped before you raised?
2 limpers. 2 limpers. And that was kind of my point. In this particular spot, because the player's involved, if I were to raise, I'm actually isolating the player that might have me dominated. Like, basically, when I raise and I get called, I'm dominating nobody, ever, right? With queen nine? I'll put it this way. If I raise pre, and I get called in 2 spots, am I ever dominating somebody when I have queen nine? Maybe they have 10-9 suited. Say it again.
35.
Say it again. I didn't hear you.
With queen 10 off or queen jack off.
Those hands are calling
all the time. Oh wow.
Well, I mean, I don't know all. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to know all the time, but the majority of players in my game, yes.
A large majority of the time that queen jack off is limp calling 30 more with queen jack. That's a much different game than I play in. So
yeah. I mean, and all games are different. And by the way, when I travel and I play a different game, obviously my game changes, which is why it goes back to my original point of saying, I don't think there's any one
player. You have to be a winning player because you've been around for a decade plus. I'm just saying that. I mean, personally, I think you're very full of yourself, and it's very hard to see. It's hard to be self-aware when you're very. It just seems you're very narcissistic, and you seem to be infallible.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's. I mean, you obviously, like I said, I'm not gonna. Let's not get to like a personal level. I don't think you know me very well, and the funny thing is, I'm not at all. I mean, am I a cocky person? Am I confident? Yeah, I am. Of course, I am. And I think most people in life that are successful in whatever they might do are probably fairly confident in what they do. Am I not aware of the fact that I can improve my game or myself as a person or me as a husband or as a father or as a friend? No.
I'm not even getting...
No, but that's my point is those in all aspects of life. No, I'm trying to say, in all aspects of life, though, I like to think that I'm quite aware of the fact that I can improve. I think, in fact, it's one of the things I try to teach my son is, in life, what we're trying to do is improve ourselves,
Okay, I apologize.
You don't have to apologize, dude. Nothing's getting personal here. It's fine. And I think your criticism is fair. I think your criticism is fair in the sense that if you view yourself as infallible, if you are so arrogant that you believe yourself to be better than everybody else, then I do think it can be difficult to ever see a bad play.
Right, and you can never improve if you think that every play you make is perfect or correct.
Yes, I would. Yes, that I can't disagree with. I just disagree with your assessment of me. I'll put it that way.
Again, I've never met you. I've
right.
met Bart like 2 times in my life. I'm just telling you what you seem to come across as when you talk on, Poker Stars, when you talk on, Live at the Bike, when you discuss hands. It just seems very cocky, very self-confident, very, I don't know. It just seems like you can do no wrong when you're talking about these hands. I would say you're trying to make an excuse of why you played this hand and lost a lot of money, or how you won a bunch, but it just seems like, I don't know the word. Not cocky, but you are cocky.
Dude, I'll tell you right now. I mean, yes. Am I cocky? Am I confident? Oh, sure I am. I just won an all-in, by the way, 10s versus ace-queen, and I am back in the lead now against Stacey Sullivan. No, I am, but like I said, I mean, obviously you and I don't know each other, and you don't know me, but right. Anybody who does know me, I'm actually quite open to. I'm actually quite open to constructive criticism, and to learning. And then, much like I said, I mean, the first time when you answered, I'll put it this way. Let me ask you this: How often do you get on the phone and you make fun of somebody, and would a podcast host actually be like, "Hey, are you trolling or are you being serious?" And I didn't care either way. Like, if somebody thought you were trolling, wouldn't they be like, "Fuck off"?
I know Lyman would tell me to fuck off.
Well, I mean, let's not even talk about Lyman. I don't want to get into him. But I'm saying, but how many people would even even entertain having what now is a 25-minute conversation with somebody who admittedly said right from the start, "I'm partly trolling you"?
Probably no one besides my friends. So.
Okay, so, I mean, the mere fact that, like I said, you can call me arrogant, cocky. My wife does that all the time. It's cool. I think it's part of the reason she's attracted to me. It's whatever. But I'm just putting it out there. Like, the mere fact that I've actually entertained this conversation for this long, right, even though you started it off with, "I'm trolling you."
Well, I'm trolling because I'm also drunk. And
but regardless of what your motivations are, I could have clicked the hang up button at any point, and I didn't. And I never clicked hang up simply because I was like, "Hey, this is cool. Let's talk."
Right.
Right. Well, I got a double paired board here with a 10. I think I'm ahead. I think both of us are going to play the board. I'm going to bluff.
Yeah. I'm not too sure how timed your.
It's got an ace. God damn it! What were you saying, buddy?
Diamond board, whatever.
Wait, what was that? I'm sorry, I missed that.
I said I'm not too sure how. What pause time you have on your?
I've got 45. I think I've got 45 seconds or something like that. Not a lot. So you're probably like a half hour behind me. Anyway, dude, like I said, I mean, honestly, I appreciate the criticism. I have no problem with it. I think it's cool. I like I said, I appreciate you being on the show and talking and calling in and everything like that. I think there are. I'll put it this way. I think there are situations. I think if you are for beginners out there, don't limp in. Don't limp in ever. Okay, for beginners out there. Basically, that's probably the best advice. If you are a beginner and you are just starting poker, don't limp. Okay. I think for players out there that are probably getting better and working on their game, I think limping occasionally is a valuable part of poker. And frankly, I think a hand like Queen 9 suited, a hand like Ace 5 suited, small pocket pairs, hands like that. I think there are situations where you may want to limp. Now, as I pointed out, Queen 9 suited in this particular game, I'm probably raising 3/4, maybe 80% of the time. This particular time, obviously, I decided not to. But I can understand your points of why not to.
Right. And I will have to disagree with you on the not limping in for new players. There are hands you should be limping in, especially in passive pre-flop games, especially when the action gets nuts post-flop. Hands like deuces, threes, fours, fives, sixes. Yeah, you can be undersetted, but that's happened such a very small amount of time that it's almost not unless you have a ton of money compared to blinds like $400, $500 in a 1-2 game. You shouldn't be too worried holding threes on a 3-7-10 board. That's fine. And you can also limp in ace 4 hearts, ace 6. Ace 4 hearts is just better than ace 6 of hearts, but
no, I mean, just as a general rule, when you're first starting to play poker, I would rather any of my brand new students to be listen, play aggressive, because the vast majority of players that I see that are beginners are just way too passive, No,
I agree, but I'm just saying that to say that you should be raising hands like pocket threes all the time is completely ridiculous.
But by the way, if you're saying that's completely ridiculous, listen, if you're saying that's completely ridiculous, I think saying raising Queen 9 suited all the time is completely ridiculous. You know what I mean? I don't think they're that. I mean, obviously they're different hands, but I don't think the situations are that much different.
No,
I think. Yeah, I mean, I'll just put it this way. It's funny, 12, 15 years ago, you could be covering poker and you could be covering poker and talking about the game and figuring out situations. And if you saw some good player raise, if you saw some good player limping on the button, or if you saw anybody limping on the button 10, 12 years ago, you'd be like, what is this guy doing? What a clown, But nowadays,
I would still think that's safe.
Nowadays, we see a ton of players limping in on the button. Good players. Some of the best players in the world limping on the button. Now, obviously, that's stack-dependent situations, but it's still very interesting. Anyway, hey, listen, dude, I'm going to let go ahead.
You classify as the best players in the world, but I don't think I've ever seen a great player limp on the button. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Oh, I've seen a lot of good players limping on the button in tournaments. A lot.
Okay. Tournaments and cash games are.
Well, I said stack size. I said stack size is different, but I think there's a lot of good players. You can limp on the button. Like I said, that's the great thing about No Limit. There's so many different things at your disposal, and I'll leave this here. I'll just say I'll be like, I think when you limit yourselves to this is right, this is wrong, and you don't even explore different things, try different things, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. Anyway, dude, listen, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to finish my heads-up match. I'm going to try to beat Stacy. But thank you for the call. I really do appreciate it. And I don't know if I can change your opinion of me or not, but whatever. It is what it is.
Whatever. It's not like I said, it wasn't a personal swipe at you as a person. It was just a swipe at you when you commentate on poker. That's how it is.
I got it, man. I hear you loud and clear, man. It's all good. Hey, dude, good luck to you. I'll see you at the Vegas World Series?
Yeah.
Okay, man. Have a good one.
Later.
Okay, so I'm going to continue my heads-up match here, and we have been back and forth, and she's going to beat me on this one. So she has got about this is amazing, by the way. So we bought in for $20,000 each, right? The PokerStars has taken ridiculous amounts of money off the table. In a home game, what are they doing? Eric the White wanted to know what's up in Prague next week. I am going to Prague next week for the 888 Poker Festival. Me and Tonka are going to be commentating on that. Really excited. I'm actually kind of part of the 888 team now, so I'm going to be going to Prague in February, Barcelona in May, and in October or November, I'm going to London. So come say hi. I'm going to kind of raise the stakes a little bit here because I kind of want this to end. So I'm going to gamble a little bit more here. Sitting out, man. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, buddy. Like I said, I'm not above criticism. I think criticism is cool, okay? I'm fine with it. You know? I just think, I think a lot of people, I've heard that a lot. Like, oh, Tuchman's such a narcissistic fuck, Tuchman's so egotistical. He's so arrogant. And it's like, okay, listen, like you don't know me. I commentate on poker. I mean, obviously I feel like I know what I'm talking about. Hello? You are under the gun. Who's this?
This is Richard Carr.
Hey, Mr. Carr, how are you, my man?
Doing good, man. Sitting here. I just listened to the Queen 9 talk there.
Yeah, that went on for a long time. My apologies.
Actually, I won one of my biggest pots with Queen 9. But anyway, I think poker's all situational, man. There's no right or wrong answer. So that was an interesting conversation.
Well, I think live poker even more so. Now, there are situations, I think there are situations where if you know that you are, like, let's say your opponent's all in and their cards flip over, or you just know this player so well, you know exactly what they have. I think, in situations like that, I think there are rights and wrongs because sometimes it's just a math question. But the vast majority of other situations, it's not really math-based, and we don't know. So I think we need to, you need to kind of gauge that. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So I'm going to just smash this, see if I can get her to call with a 10. Let's see if I can get her to
Falcons are
smash
going to win. You realize that, right?
Huh?
In the Super Bowl.
Who do you
The Falcons are going to take it.
Yeah,
you realize that, right?
I think you're wrong, my friend. I think you're wrong. Do you want to talk about the Falcons game? By the way, Poker Prodigy says, maybe better to set up a heads-up sit and go instead where the blinds escalate. Maybe true. I think I'm just going to lower the blinds. Maybe we'll do 50 big blinds effective instead of 100 because this is going on forever. We are still like even. Honestly, PokerStars is going to win because we're going to have no chips left. No, dude, it's crazy. Like, I mean, we only have 20. We started with 40,000 chips on the table. We only have 27,000 left, which is just insane. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that's great.
I think it's a real dude. Listen, I mean, you know me. I'm a Jet fan. I hate the Patriots. Okay, but I feel like it's a really bad matchup for the Falcons. Tell me why the Falcons are going to win.
Well, I'm a Patriots fan and a Falcons fan. I'm a Tom Brady fan, but I grew up in Georgia, so I have to kind of root for the Falcons this time. But
right. You and I, by the way, for the record, you and I have a T-shirt bet.
A good excuse why the Falcons are going to win. They'll just have to outscore them. They have to beat them like 45-41 or something.
Okay,
like that.
and I have heard that. I'm going to throw this at you, okay? And I'm going to throw this at all the Falcon fans out there, okay? How often in the era of Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, when the Patriots have had a good team, and obviously they have a good team right now, how often, when the Patriots are beaten, how often is it because they're being outscored? Think of the times they've been beaten in their during their during their era. When they're beaten, who are they beaten by?
Low scoring team. Well, I can't remember the score of the Giants. What was the Giants score?
Oh, I mean, but they clearly in 2007 and 2011, both games were pretty low scoring. But forget about that. The reasons that the New England Patriots lost that game was because in both games, the New York Giants were able to put a tremendous amount of pressure on Tom Brady with their front four. Whether it was Michael Strahan or Pierre Paul. Obviously they lost to Denver last year. And why did they lose to Denver? They lost to Denver because, Denver's defense won that game. Clearly Denver's offense didn't win the game. Right?
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
So, I mean, I just feel like, I can't remember ever like a Tom Brady and Bill Belichick team being, Stacey Sullivan is sending me messages of, you're a pain, just die. I can't remember a situation where Tom Brady and Bill Belichick lost to a lost in a shootout. That's not what they lose. They lose in games. And frankly, I'm going to throw something else at you, okay? If that's your thought process, right? What is Bill Belichick really good at doing? He's really, really good at taking away another team's number one option, right? Number one weapon.
Yep.
Okay, so let's just, for argument's sake, say that Bill Belichick, because he's done this in the past, will be able to at least slow down Julio Jones, right?
Who's hurt?
Yeah, but obviously he looked so good that game. You figure in 2 weeks he's going to be fine, right?
Right.
So I look at that and I go, okay, so they slow down Julio Jones. I don't want to hear anybody say how Mohamed Sanu is good. The guy sucked when he was in Cincinnati. The guy had like 59 catches for 610 yards for an 11-yard average this season, and that was with Julio Jones being hurt a few games, okay? The Falcons have no tight end. Taylor Gabriel is, okay, he's a nice player. These are not players that are going to beat the New England Patriots, okay? Now, I think the New England Patriots can stop the run as well. Now, the one place where I do think the Falcons will find success is I think Tevin Coleman and Devonta Freeman will be able to catch the ball out of the backfield, okay? And if they do catch the ball out of the backfield, I'm gambling here. Ah! Damn it. She caught me. Caught my hand in the cookie jar. She caught me. Bastard. If they do have success, that's the only way. So I feel like, if Bill Belichick is somewhat successful at slowing down Julio Jones, I just don't know how the Atlanta Falcons are going to keep up. Hang on 1 second. Don't go anywhere, guys. We're home. Good. I'm almost finished up. Anyway, sorry about that. Hey, sitting out. What's up, my man? Thanks so much. I appreciate the love there. Anyway, so that's that's where I'm getting at. Like, my thought process. Oh, I meant to raise that. My bad. I look at the Atlanta Falcons offense and I go, well, I think that Bill Belichick will be able to slow down Julio Jones and slow down that offense a little bit. And I don't know how Atlanta's going to stop Tom Brady at all. I mean, when Tom Brady has been stopped, it's because the other team has had an amazing pass rusher. And I know Vic Beasley has played well and he's done well, but Vic Beasley is one guy. This Atlanta team does not have a great pass rush. So I'm not convinced that they're going to be able to stop Tom Brady's offense. In fact, not only do I think that Patriots are going to win, I don't think it's going to be all that close.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's a bad matchup.
Gotcha.
I think it's a pretty bad matchup.
You stole your racer chair? I'm just curious. I just saw your racer chair. Did you steal a racer chair from the World Series? Or
I didn't steal it, man. Stealing's a terrible word. I didn't steal it. I inquired to some of my superiors, and they told me to just take it. So I stuck it in my car and I took it home.
I hear you.
By the way, I am down to 33 big blinds.
Giant, the 365 Giant.
Yeah, the schedule is interesting. I was looking at that. The 365 Giants should be a really interesting tournament, to say the least. I don't know all the details. I actually contacted Jack Effel today to see if he would be interested in coming on the show. I'll get him on either next week or the week after. At some point, I'll talk to Jack Effel about all of them. But, yeah, that could be, ridiculous, the numbers of that one. Don't you think?
Yeah, because it was like unlimited rebuys and all that stuff.
Yeah, and you're gonna have some guys who are just you're gonna have some guys who just fire 5 bullets, don't you?
Yeah. Well, you had some guys last year in the Colossus that fired every single. Can't remember the stat, but there was a certain amount of players that fired every single flight of Colossus and didn't cash in any of them. So,
right.
Amazing.
Man, I'm getting my ass kicked. Stacey's got me 3-1. Sorry, but yeah, I think obviously, Jack and Ty do a really good job of kind of continuing to mix up their play mix up what they have, and offerings. I think the dealer's choice is something they put out there a few years ago. They weren't sure how it would take off, and people love it. This year they have a $10,000 PLO8 tournament, which I think is great, and I'm really excited about that. So I think there's a lot of stuff out there for people to play.
Yeah,
what are you gonna come out for, by the way? Oh, by the way, if anybody doesn't know, Carr made a final table. What place did you finish in again?
Fourth.
Fourth place, yeah. So yeah, and he gave me a really cool T-shirt.
Yeah. And I guess based on your analysis of the football game, I'll be owing you another T-shirt, right?
I believe. Well, I wouldn't bet on the Patriots if I thought they were going to lose, right?
That is true.
I mean, that would make me that would make me really, really stupid if I bet on a team that I actually thought was going to lose. Yeah, I don't even think the game's going to be close. Like I said, I think it's just a bad matchup for the Patriots.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, obviously, but I think it's a bad matchup for them. Oh, we chop it up. Anyway, hey, dude, man, listen, go. Don't be a stranger. Come back on the show, and we'll talk more.
All right, sounds good.
Later, buddy.
Night. See you. All right, man.
So I continue to toil here with Stacy. Man, this is going to be a long podcast. Maybe I have to edit it. I don't even know. Queen, king, flop. I got 7-5 out here. Like I said, we're playing in this home game, so it's technically play money. But Stacy and I are playing for $100, and it looks like I might lose $100 to her, which would be pretty upsetting. I have not been able to recover. I had her 3-1 in chips. I had her all in. She had top set, and I had top 2 pair in a heads up. I mean, what are the odds of that? My gosh. See if I can win this one. I won it. Okay, I'm back up to 6,000, 5,400. So she has got me about 4-1 right now on chips. So we'll see if I can turn this around just a little bit. I flopped a gutter, pretty worthless gutter with a backdoor flush draw. She's checked it though. I'm gonna put a little bet out there. Maybe who knows if I can win it. Oh, she just folded. Wow, she just gave up. Had a gutter with a flush draw on the turn. I flopped another gutter here. Jack 7-7. I got 10-8. I might check raise this a little bit. I hate her. I hate you, Sully. I'm going to have to go with something here. See if I can get lucky. Stubborn. So my first match for money on my show, and it looks like I'm going to lose unless I can make a valiant comeback. Sitting out says, I'm planning to play the Colossus first time at World Series of Poker. Any tips, Tuch? Well, if you get heads up for the bracelet, don't play like I'm playing right now. Although I had her 3-1, in all fairness. I had her 3-1. By the way, I am down to 15 bigs. I'm going to raise this and get it in if she wants to. Let's gamble. Nope, she's not going to gamble with me. First time playing the Colossus. Get there a couple days early, man. Sitting out. My suggestion to you would be get there a couple days early and, don't do anything silly. Just kind of soak in the atmosphere. Maybe play a satellite or two to get your nerves under you. Because a lot of people come in for their first tournament and they're just so damn nervous that they screw up. Oh, Stacey's just going to move it all in every hand, huh? I'm not looking. I don't need much to call. I need more than 8 high, though. Or 10 high. Jesus. This is terrible. Boom, boom, ba-dum, boom, boom. She has now got me 8-1 in chips. I can probably bet this. Yeah. I think if she had a king, she probably would have moved all in. Oh, yada, yada, yada. Oh, tough one. I hate you, Stacy. Yeah, I mean that's sitting out since he's planning to be there on Thursday and playing the classes on Saturday. That's not bad. Like I said, just kind of like try to soak in the atmosphere of what is going on there. You just don't want to get crazy. Bad penny? I don't know what that means. What does a bad penny mean? See what she calls. She does here. I'm gonna bet pot. Maybe I can win a little pot here. Come on, Stacy, call me. Yeah, value, baby. Got some value out of that one. I'm gonna be stubborn. I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna be a tough out. Damn it. Oh, come on, go all in. Go all in. Go all in. She asked me if the podcast is basically over. Yeah, the podcast is essentially over. We're just rambling on here. We will work on this. We will figure it out. Make sure we get this sorted out. This is too long, obviously. Let's just gamble over there. Eric Dwight says, will you play any events? I don't know. Normally, I always play the main event, and I would normally play the main event this year. But my wife, we are expecting our second child on June 15th. And because of that, we may not. I am beat here. She's got a 5. I'm going to bet pot, though, and try to, rep. Maybe I can get her fold of 5. I think I got her to fold of 5. So normally I would play the main event, Eric, but in this particular year, I am not going to play the main. I don't think, unless my wife tells me to. Do. Playing here. Check it. I do not have a club in my hand. Stacy bets 2. I'm just going to give this one up. This is a really bad board for me. I mean, I've got a straight draw, but the 10 doesn't help me. I need a 5, and it can't be a club. So I'm basically drawing to 3 outs. Now, I mean, obviously there's a chance that my ace high is good, but I just don't have the chips to kind of worry about it here. I'm going to put a little raise in here. Oh, I got a pair of 10s. Check this back. Call. I think she shoves any aces here, so I don't know. I mean, I don't know what she's repping if she bets. I mean, she has to have like Jack 6 suited or something like that. Yeah, 7-6. Didn't make much sense. I think she's repping. I don't think she's repping much there. I think she's 3-betting most aces. I think she's 3-betting King Queen. Jack 10 even maybe. So I'm gonna go all in here. I'm working my way back, baby. Back to a 3-1 advantage for her. We are fighting it out here. For those of you who are still listening to this podcast, my apologies. Like I said, all I'm doing now the rest of the way is playing heads up with Sully. So not much else to go on. Of course, check out crushlivepoker.com. Use the code DTA401. I can't call you here, Stace. Sorry. By the way, I'm 1 double up away from being even with her now. after being down to like 3,000 chips. I have worked my way back up. Ah, damn it. For those of you who joined us, of course, thank you so much. Do appreciate. Flop the gutter here. Now I'm open-ended. I'll put a little raise in here. Try to represent like even 8-3, 8-5, one of those hands. I can rep 2 pair here. My draw is just not that strong that if she re-raises me, I'd rather just, take the equity in that one. I am fighting back. I am fighting back. No give up in here. No give up. Oh, she's called me. Not good news. These 3-bets from out of position really haven't done very well for me. Trying to get her to fold a 7. I'm not repping much here. I mean, I would probably do this with a good queen or even any king, obviously. Oh, she says unreal and she folds. Oh, I want to show. Oh, I want to show that. Show that bluff. Ten deuce deuce. I flop 2 pair here. 3s and deuces. My hand likely still the best hand. I'm not going anywhere. Obviously, not many turn cards or river cards I'm going to like, but I think she checks back a lot of her ace highs in the flop, so I feel like I probably still have the best hand here a bunch. Yep. On a 10 deuce deuce board, she's just going to check back her ace highs a bunch. So I think when the ace comes, it's actually not that good a card for her. I mean, the funny thing is, had like just some random middle card come off and she bet, it would have been a little bit more believable. The ace is actually a pretty bad river card for her. King 9-9, ace 5, still probably the best hand. I have crawled back. She's got about a 2-1 chip advantage over me now. 2 diamonds out there, 2 hearts out there. I got 2 pair now, aces and 9s. Kicker does not play. I'll bet half pot. See if I can get looked up by a king. Nope. And I am right back in it. Woo-hoo. I think I got her frustrated. Crawling back, baby. Come on, Sully. What do you got? What do you got, kid? By the time, honestly, 15,000 of the 40,000 is already out. It's funny. It's almost ridiculous how many chips are just gone. She checked it back, and what a great turn card for me. Not only do I turn second pair, but I've got a flush draw to go as well. I'm going to bet here. See if I can get called by a weaker jack. Maybe a 7. No, she's just going to give up. And we are back to almost even. So I have been I was a 3-1 advantage. Flop top pair, turn top 2. Lost to top set. And then she had me at like 7 or 8-1. And we are back to almost even. I've crawled my way back. We're still relatively deep, too. I mean, we're like 60 bigs deep. It's like a joke. Highly fought. We are fighting this one out. How many people are watching this show? Eric Dwight says, my birthday is June 12th. Have you picked a name? We have picked a name, but I am not going to release that. I think you'd understand that, obviously. Grinding Daily says, that is hideous. Oh, yeah, can you please burn that jacket and sweater? What jacket and what sweater? What are you talking about? My jacket? I'm so confused. I normally play, like I said, I played the main event now 5 times. I've cashed twice in it, and I love playing the main. The only year I missed it was when my son was born. My other son, who was 3.5, was born June 11th. So I missed it that year, and in all likelihood, I will miss it this year again. If you have any questions, guys, go in the chat room. Great time to ask me. I am now in the lead. Craziness. I mean, we're like dead heat right now, and she's back in the lead. But we're like super close. Oh my Lord, what are we doing? This is like torture. Grinding Dallas is the top that you are wearing now. Please burn it. Oh, it's my Patagonia shirt. You know what it is? It's actually my. It's a shirt I always wear to go snowboarding in. Underneath my jacket. And it was really cold this morning. So I put it on, right? And don't go anywhere, Sully. Come on, call. Don't go anywhere. Damn it. So I put it on, and it was cold, and I was just wearing it. That was why. Why do I gotta burn it though, dude? Is it that? I mean, I'm a dude. Are you that like? Is it that bad a shirt? Really? Somebody tell me why PokerStars actually rakes money in a home game. I don't get it. You know what I mean? Somebody explain that to me. Why would you rake money in a home game? Trying to make some adjustments here to the way Stacy plays. I'm going to float here from out of position. Going to be really, really tough for her to continue bluffing on a board when the ace comes on the turn. Because I could have a weak ace. I could have a 7. She knows I'm not folding those hands. She's going to continue betting, though. Kind of tells me she has something. Like, it's just a really tough... I don't think she's going to be bluffing there a second straight. Because, I look like I could easily have a bad ace or a 7. And I wouldn't probably fold. Grinding Daily says it makes you look fat. Really? Makes me look fat? Says it makes Craig Sager's wardrobe look fashionable. Isn't Craig Sager dead? Poor dude dies and we're still hammering him. Grinding Down says they rake money because they sell play chips. No, I know, but I mean, really? It's laughable. The rake is outrageous, though. I'm not going to lie. Let's see what I can do here. I picked up a drop of showdown value. I can't beat a 10, though. She just moved all in. Backdoor hearts, maybe? She checked the turn. I lose. I just lost. Okay. I gambled a little bit there. I'm not going to lie. My wife and my kid are home. I wanted to finish. But Stacy beat me. First thing. Stacy